Hey everyone! Here's another one of our riveting videos for our flipped classroom. Today we are talking about factoring using ax squared plus bx plus c. So basically the big difference between the other video and today's video is that this time we have an a value. So basically there's a number in front of our x squared. So like before, we didn't have a number in front of our x squared, but today we do. Okay, so our essential question is how can you factor, so we're still factoring, the trinomial of ax squared plus bx plus c into the product of two binomials. So make sure you get that essential question written down. I'm going to move on to our first example. So they jump right in because they already assume that you guys know how to factor, which you do because we just spent a little bit of time yesterday and today on it. Okay, first things first. Hopefully you guys notice that there is a common factor amongst all three of these terms. We got 5x squared plus 15x plus 10. You should, at this point in your mathematical careers, be able to say, oh, yeah, there's a 5 inside of all three of these terms. So what you need to do at this point is you need to say, okay, that's going to turn into x squared. This is going to turn into 3x. And then this is going to turn into 2. Now we're not done because remember, our essential question said you need to factor in into two binomials, right? So we need to make sure that we take this trinomial and we get it into that product of two binomials. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to write down the 5, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to factor this trinomial into two binomials. I'm going to always, I don't know why, but I always just start off by writing x and x because I know that x times x, that x squared turns into x times x. Again, that if you learn anything from this year, I want you to remember that x squared is x times x, and that 2x is x plus x. Okay, so let's get that straight. Next thing, we have to find our factors of 2. And hopefully you guys are able to quickly figure out that there's only the one pair, just 1 and 2. So we will be able to just break that down into 5 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. And again, you guys, if you were to just work backwards, so if you were to be given like just this 5 times x plus 1 times x plus 2, you'll be able to, okay, let's just FOIL this together really quick. Okay, I've got 5. When I multiply all this stuff together, that gives me x squared plus 2x plus x plus 2. Okay, so that turns into x squared plus 3x plus 2. Now let's distribute this 5 through. So then I've got 5x squared plus 15x plus 10. Okay, it is so easy to check these, you guys. So incredibly easy, but you have to take the time to do it. All right. Now, these next couple of examples are not as clear-cut and as easy to solve as the ones we've been given before. So I'm going to teach you a method that will hopefully help in the process of solving these. All right. Now, as you guys notice this time, when we look at this A term and this C term, none of the, you don't have any factors that go into all three of these numbers like we did super nicely on the last example. So what we have to do is we're going to do a process that I just learned 2 years ago when I was teaching up at the high school. we're going to learn a process called AC split. Okay? So I'm going to just write it down really quickly. This is called AC split. So what happens with AC split? AC split is you are taking your A term, this 4, times your C term. So you're going to take those, you're going to multiply them together. So when you multiply them together, that gives you 12x squared. You are going to put your B term in the bottom part of this x, or in the bottom part of this big X. Okay, so now what they want you to do, you guys, is find the factors of 12 that when you add them together will give you 13. So the factors of 12, when you add them together, will give you 13. Okay, so let's think about this. Factors of 12, you've got 1 and 12, you've got 2 and 6, and you have 3 and 4. In my mind, the only way that you're going to be able to come up with 12 is having 12x and having x. Okay, now here's where the split part comes in. So we did A times C, that's that 12x squared up there. Where the split is happening is you're taking that 13x and you're splitting it into these two factors. Okay, so let me just take a second. I'm going to rewrite. So I'm going to write down 4x squared plus 12x plus x, and then plus 3. So now here's the reason why we call this AC split. Like I said, you're splitting this B term. You've multiplied A and C together. Now what we're able to do as mathematicians is we are able to do grouping. So we are able to group the first two and the last two terms together. Now when we do this, if we look at this first binomial here, I've got 4x and I've got 12x. I am going to take out a factor of 4x, which leaves me with x plus 3. In this second one here, though, I don't have to take anything out. Hopefully you guys have noticed that I came up with the exact same term twice. That's what you want to happen. You want to have the same term show up twice. So here is how this ends up breaking down. Even though that term shows up twice, you only write it once. So x plus 3, and then your new factor turns into 4x, that's coming from this right here, plus 1. So the stuff that you've taken out, that is going to turn into your new factor. So 4x plus 1 is the new factor. So we didn't take anything out here, but we just kind of went ahead and we said, okay, it's just going to be 1. But you have to have that 1 back there as that placeholder. So now try it, you guys. Try taking x plus 3 times 4x plus 1 and factoring it back together. Or not factoring, foiling it back together. X times 4x, that gets you 4x squared. X times 1 gives you x. 3 times 4x, that gives you 12x. 3 times 1 gives you 3. Combine those, 4x squared plus 13x plus 3. Okay, so I know that this topic gets a little complicated. It gets to be just a little bit much. But the more we do it, again, the better we get at it. So let's try this second example again together. I'm going to set up my big X because, again, this is just a method that kind of helps me keep everything organized. remember we're going to take a times c, so our a term is 3x squared. We're going to multiply that by 2. So up here, I'm going to write down 6x squared. Down here in the bottom of this x, I'm going to write in negative 7x. We got to find the product of 6x squared that adds up to negative 7x. So even if you want to start just kind of listing your factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3, okay, the only way that I'm going to come up with this negative 7 is through 1 and 6 up here. So this is going to be 6x, and this is going to be x. So I just realized that in the last problem, I never really explained to you which number to put where. Like I have 6x and I have x, and I never explained to you how to set up which one goes where. So what I do, you guys, is I take a second and I look. I've got 3x squared. Does it make more sense for me to put the x with it, or does it make more sense for me to put the 6 with it? And realistically, you can really set this up either way you want to. You can put 6x here. You can put x here. You know what? I'll just show you both. 3x squared plus x. Oh, wait a second. Both of these need to be negative. Because look at the sign here. That's got to be negative 7x. So both of those have to be negative. Okay. So I have 3x squared minus x. And then minus 6x. And then that turns out to be plus 2 at the end. So that's got to be positive. These two have to be negative. Okay. So now this right here, and this bottom one that's underneath the x, those are the same. I'm just going to show you these two different ways to do it and just basically prove to you that either way you set it up, you'll come up with the exact same answer. On this one, I'm going to group these first two together, and then I'm going to group these back two together. And I'm going to do the same here. Just group and group. Okay, now once I do that, I'm going to go back to this top one, this upper left-hand one. I notice I've got 3x squared and I've got 6x. I can take out a factor of 3x. Once I take out that factor of 3x, I'm left with x minus 2. Now, when I go to this back term here, what happens is, notice how we go from that x minus 2 to, oh, whoops, hang on just a second, you guys. Okay, I need to plug my computer in. Sorry. Like I said before, I want this right here to turn into this same factor. So as you guys notice, I have negative x and positive 2. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to take out a factor of negative 1. That's going to turn this into x minus 2. Okay, so now I have x minus 2. Although it shows up twice, I only write it once. And then my second factor is made up of what the factors that I've pulled out. So 3x minus 1. Okay, so that turns out to be my solution for the first one. I'm going to move over to the second one now, this one on this lower right-hand corner. I'm going to show you the exact same thing ends up happening. So I'm going to take out a factor of x here. So I'm going to be left with 3x minus 1. This time, for this back factor, I'm going to take out a negative 2. So this turns into 3x minus 1. I'm going to write down 3x minus 1, and then that's x minus 2. So, you guys, you come up with the exact same thing, no matter how you do it. So if you're working on some of these and you write it just slightly different than what I do, keep going until you come up with your answer. Okay. So I'm going to do this next one again with you. Just as, oh no, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this next example with you, and then I'm going to stop the video, and I'm going to make a new one. Okay, so as you guys notice, there's still a bunch of problems on your note sheet, but I know that these videos get a little bit long, so I would rather just kind of do separate videos so that they're a little bit shorter. Okay, this time, same kind of idea. I am going to do that AC split process. A times C, so I have 2x squared times negative 7. I've got negative 14x squared. Negative 14x squared. And then here's my B term. I'm going to put that down in the bottom. So I need to find my factors of negative 14x squared that when I add them together will give me negative 5x. So remember, you guys, I told you that when you set these up, like if C is negative, you're going to want to set them up 2 times. So that's 1 and 14, 2 and 7, and those should be the only factors of 14. So how can I come up with negative 5? That should be that one. So I'd have 2x minus 7. So let's split this negative 5x up. So here's 2x squared. I'm going to do plus 2x, and then I'm going to do negative 7x, and then minus 7. Let's group these first two together, group these second two together. Hey, those look super nice. I've got a common factor in each of them. If I take out a 2x from this front one, that's going to leave me with x plus 1. In this back one, I'm going to want to take out a negative 7, so that would be x plus 1 as well, leaving me with 2x plus, nope, not plus, minus 7. And then again, although it shows up twice, you only write it once. Okay. So I am going to be done with this video. I will upload this one. And then I'm going to do the last 2 examples on the top half here. And then I'll do the word problem. I'm going to encourage you guys to do problems 1 through 6 on your own. Okay? So go ahead, start the next video.